Hello everyone, welcome to Brainara. This is Yugandhra bringing you the webinar series on quality management system. We are doing something interesting in this episode and even the upcoming ones of this webinar series. And here's the thing. We are going to record these sessions rather than going live, which is like our usual thing. So after doing quite a few live sessions, we realized we wanted to shake things up a little. So the idea behind the recorded webinars is that they're accessible to everyone and all at the same time. People can watch the webinars at their own pace and convenience. So we hope you enjoy this. Now, this particular episode is a nice segue from our previous session on quality management system. And our speaker, Dr. Venkatesh, will present to you this episode. And by now, most of you are familiar with Dr. Venkatesh, but for those who are not, I would love to introduce him to you. Dr. Venkatesh is a consultant with Brainara as the quality management system expert. He is an ISO certified lead auditor and a lead implementer professional in the information security management system. After leading some of the best information and process security teams in well established organizations, he has recently taken up a career interest in techno legal domain and public interest litigation. Now, as we go back in time, Venkatesh's long term career achievements in academia has won him several accolades, prestigious fellowships, and great honors. During his tenure as a teaching assistant, a research assistant, and an assistant professor, he has written a number of research papers for publications and international journals. He has also presented at international conferences multiple times. It is such an honor to have you with us, Dr. Venkatesh. Now, without any further ado, let me hand over the session to you.
Yeah, thank you for the nice introduction. So we will right away jump into the session today. So the outline of this today's session is, so we will start with a recap of the 5S methodology. Then we will go into the topic of this session, which is basically the shine step of the 5S methodology. And finally, we will cover the tools and techniques how to get the shine step across and implement. So that's the basically the outline of today's presentation. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, sorry about the some formatting issue. So what is 5S? So 5S stands for sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. So this is a cyclic process. You start with sort, end with sustain, and for the second cycle you again go around the same. The sequence is very important. The order is we have to follow it to get the best out of it. That's one thing. The other thing is, in today's session, we will be concentrating on the sign, the third step of the 5S methodology. In the previous sessions, we have discussed what the sort is. So sort is basically you sort the various items. Items could be anything from your material to equipments to products to thought process, even your codes, process methodology. It could be anything. So basic goal of the sort step is to eliminate what is not needed and keep what is absolutely needed. So that's the goal or the purpose of the sort method. Okay. Sort step. The next one is once you sort the things in your organization, then we set in order. So basically it is the step where you decide on the location and arrangement of your all the various items and processes, materials, equipments, whatnot. Okay, this is the second step. And the third step is shine, which we would discuss in this session. And in the subsequent following sessions, we will go to the standardize and sustain steps. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. Okay. So what is shine? So the the philosophy or the concept or the tagline or whatever we call it of the shine step is I think is best captured in the quotation, cleanliness is next to godliness. So even though that quotation comes from hygiene and environment and things like that, but it's pretty much applicable to the science step of the 5S methodology as well. So that's the tagline. And what is the goal? Goal is given in the bottom of the slide. So keep everything in great working order so that it lasts longer, doesn't break down often, increased safety and lower accidents. So this is the purpose or the goal of the shine methodology. So generally, when we talk about cleanliness or shining, or we restrict ourselves only to the cleanup and sometimes inspection processes. But in this 5S methodology, it is little more than that. In fact, it is a lot more than that. It's a very critical step. It is in the middle of the 5S's. What all it covers is, in apart from the cleanup and inspection, which could be scheduled daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly, depending on the nature of your activity, work, process, workflow. You could have any or all of them. In fact, if you go to a typical industry or a factory setup, you could have all of these frequencies. So in addition to the usual cleanup and inspection step, which is what we generally associate with cleaning or shining, what two other things are part of this shine? Because you remember, the goal is to keep everything in great working order, not just for the visual and aesthetic look to clean it. We have to keep things in good working conditions. So for that, what we need to do is, in addition to cleaning and inspection, which we would be doing in any case, is we need to develop protocols, and performance parameterization for all our processes. So we need to have protocol with respect to cleaning. We need to protocol with respect to the order of things which need to be carried out. So how we are going to dispose of waste, what we are going to eliminate at the end of the process or end of the day, or whatever work cycle you have. And we are going to parameterize the performance or the yield or the output or outcome of your process or manufacturing or whatever you are doing in your organization. So we need to we will be having parameters like it could be quality parameter, or it could be efficient parameter, or it could be any number of parameters. So those parameterization we would be doing as part of the shine step. And finally, we will be doing corrective action and preventive action whenever we see a gap or a lacuna or a non-compliance, or whenever an accident happens, or incident or a spillage or whatever. We would be doing corrective action and preventive action. So what is a corrective action? Corrective action is to correct what is has happened. How do you react to that situation? If there is a fire, you basically douse the fire. So that's the corrective action, so that the effect or the cause doesn't expand to other parts of the organization, or it doesn't spill over to other processes or whatever. That's corrective action. And preventive action is basically you do a troubleshooting, you do a root cause analysis, and put in steps which would prevent future occurrence of this particular incident or an accident. So that's what the preventive action is, which is also part of the shine step of this 5S methodology. So the shine step is pretty much it has a wider scope and a wider reach than just keeping things clean and tidy. So that's what the shine step endeavors to do. Next step, slide please. Yeah, thank you. So now coming to the what are the things you have to take care. So in this slide and the next slides, what we would be discussing is or showing is, for the better easy perception and visualization, we will be mostly concentrating on a examples or illustration from an manufacturing or a factory kind of a setup, uh, or an industrial situation. This just for easy visualization and understanding of the different aspects of the science step. So we should not restrict ourselves. This is only for the presentation sake. And if you look at from a conceptual point of view and principle point of view, all these things are applicable to pretty much most of the process, except maybe one or two, which is very peculiar to manufacturing setup. Okay. So with that, let's see what are the things we need. So this is it's a good representative list of items. There are little more things which could be for your particular situation. It doesn't cover the entire spectrum, but this slide covers pretty much most of the things. Okay. So what do we do is we have discussed it earlier, like if you have a spillage or a leak or other defects in your process, so that's a one major thing we have to monitor and keep working on removing them and preventing them. And of course, if you find them, do a corrective action. So this is also part of shine methodology. So you can when you're implementing the 5S methodology, you have to understand your process, the kind of strategies you have in your organization, and the kind of management practice and culture you have. So this first thing could be part of your routine. So you have to understand how to incorporate this into the existing routine. So that's what it is. In certain cases, you have to prevent contamination. So the defect and contamination may look similar, but they are different, quite different. Defect is what you get after the end process. It will. Contamination is what happens to the process during the process, either at the input side or during the processing side. If you, so that's what the contamination is. So that is also you have to look into it. It may so to reiterate, like we discussed. Yeah, so the next thing we have to remember is about preventing the contamination. So that's where we were discussing. So the contamination is little different from the defect. Sorry about that. The defect is what happens at the end after the process, or to the output of the process. Let's say you are manufacturing something, or you are running an application or a code. If you get error messages or unwanted tasks, or the product is out of spec, then it is defect. But contamination is little different. Of course, it may or may not lead to defect, but contamination is what happens during or at the start of the input side of the process. So that's also very important. Okay. The next step is, like we mentioned in the previous slide, is identification of the key performance points on the equipment. Of course, it's it's not need not be restricted to equipment, even your process, steps and other things, we have to identify. Like, so this is part of your parameterization. So you have to performance parameterization. So you have to identify what are the key key performance points, and you have to monitor them on a periodic basis. So that's also part of the shine step. Next is, so after identifying the parameters, you have to have a tolerance or the acceptable limit of the for the performance parameters which you have identified in the previous identification step. That's also very important. What is the tolerance? What is the acceptable range for each of the parameters which has been identified? Okay. Another aspect is marking of the equipments and the controls. So that's also part of the shine, so that when the workflow is not hindered by unidentified or unidentifiable steps or equipments or controls in your workflow. So this is very important. Then other aspect is identifying abnormal conditions early before becoming out of control. So in the previous step, when we have the tolerance set for each parameters, so we should have a methodology or a protocol to determine when things may go out of bound. So that's where the marking of equipments and control comes into picture. So it's basically it's a control, control for your process steps. If a particular parameter, let us say, let's take the case of a polymer extrusion or polymer production facility. So you may be monitoring, let's say, density. So the density, you may have a range, acceptable range. If it is beyond that range, you should have a control mechanism to identify these conditions before it becomes too out of control. That's also part of the shine step. So these steps can be incorporated in your workflow itself, so you need not devise a separate step. So this is the advantage of this shine. Unlike the previous two steps, sorting and set it in order, this step is will go hand in hand with your process, so that's the advantage. So you don't have to spend a whole lot of extra time on this step. Okay. And of course, another thing, which we have discussed in the previous slide is about the correction, corrective action and preventive action. And as far as possible, it can be done on a very regular basis. Of course, in this case, we have given in a daily frequency, because as I said, we will be seeing examples from a factory or a manufacturing kind of a setup where things happen pretty much daily, or 24 bar 7 it happens. So that's where it is specified as daily. And this is not an exhaustive step given for your use case. You can find, you may or may not have more things to address to. This gives you a good picture of what are the different things you may have to consider and implement in this science step. And to reiterate, this step need not be a different step from your process or your setup or a workflow. It could be part of your workflow itself. Okay. So with that, we will go to the next slide where we will see some visual examples. So this is an example of a portable vessel. So you can see things are in motion. And so in this example, we see that there is a powder leakage, the one on the left. So if you are seeing the shine step, it is not just about, keeping the place tidy, neat and clean, where you will just have to clean or get rid of the powder. But you have to fix the problem also. Like we talked about the corrective action and preventive action. So some corrective actions and which are given here is you can add a sealing. I know actually it's a brush, I believe. Yeah. Um, bush. Sorry, it's a sealing bush. Yeah, I think it was right only. So you can add a bush which can seal the prevent the leakage to certain extent. And also in this example, they have found out that adjusting the support pole height also helps in further reducing the leakage. And another important aspect is, which is part of the protocol, part of the shine step, is to train the operators to make sure that they follow the correct operating procedure. So we talked about the SOP part also, which is covered here. So all these things would take care of the problem. And of course, it will enhance the productivity, it will cut down on loss, etc. Okay. Next slide, please. We will see one more example, I think. Yeah, so this is a slightly different example. Here also there is a leakage, or there is a spillage kind of a situation. Here the problem is very little different. So here it happens because of the mismatched geometry of the equipment or the manufacturing setup. So here the proposed action is increase the pipe size and add sealing for the tie-in part, so that you prevent further leakage. And of course you can visually see that it keeps the equipment in a clean and tidy and neat condition. Okay, so this is a slightly different example. Okay, and I think I have one more, maybe one or two more example. Let us see the next slide, please. Yeah, so in this case, so we have again a leakage kind of scenario. So this is basically a kind of a water tank for quenching the polymers. The pellets are getting out of the instruments. So that's where the leakage is. The polymer pellets. So the reason found out to be the cause is there is more than acceptable gap. That's what it is shown here. In that gap, things come out. So the step corrective action would be reduce the gap between the two sleeves. To avoid polymer pellet spill. And this involves modifying your equipment. So this science step um, needs to be taken care in in collaboration with a wide range of stakeholders, because we are going to modify things. We may be modifying equipments. uh, so that's why you have to be more involved with all the stakeholders. And as I keep on mentioning, this shine step is not an exclusive step outside your workflow. It will be part of your workflow. Okay, we are just associating these things with the shine step, in this 5S methodology. That's the key message of showing these illustrations. Okay, next slide, please. I think this comes to the end of presentation. Yeah. In the next session, we will discuss the next step, which is basically a standardize, which is a pillar which supports the entire 5S methodology. So that's we will see it in the next session. Next slide, please. Yeah, so you can refer to these websites for information on Brainara. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you for the excellent webinar, sir. Thank you very much. And we hope everyone found this webinar helpful, and also you enjoy this when you happen to watch it. So, as Dr. Venkatesh said, you can check out Brainara on our website, which is www.brainara.com. I'm sorry, www.brainara.com. You can also write to us. You can give feedback about our webinars, or you can like send your service requirements at info@brainara.com, or you can check out our social media presence, and we go by the handle at the Brainara. So watch this space for more incoming webinars on quality management system and other domains. Thank you very much. Have a great day.